Now we are starting with a new topic, that is you should know that the equilibrium involves a physical process as well as chemical process. So depending upon that, we have the equilibrium classified into two categories. If it involves the physical process, it is said to be physical equilibrium, right? And if it involves the chemical process, it is said to be chemical equilibrium. Right. So we'll be discussing these equilibrium separately so as to make you understand in a proper manner, right? So I think you are clear with the terms that when the equilibrium is achieved in the physical processes, it is said to be physical equilibrium, and when it is achieved in the chemical reaction, it is said to be chemical equilibrium. Now I am stating few examples for you to make you understand. One is that we see that the ice gets converted into the liquid, and at the same time we can have liquid back into the ice. So what is happening here? That means the melting is in equilibrium with the freezing. So suppose I have taken a closed container, right, in which we have a water, a few content of water, and we have ice, right. We get to see, so it has to be closed. Keep in mind, this is an important property to achieve an equilibrium, that those reactions which occur in a closed system are only get to be can achieve the equilibrium, right. So I'm just having an ice which is floating on the water, right, but after a few minutes also I can see that the ice is still floating on the liquid. So that means ice is not melting. Yes, it is melting, but the rate at which it is melting, that means the rate at which the ice is getting converted into a liquid is the same that the rate at which the liquid is just uniting, the liquid are just reaching on the, you can say, the surface of ice, and they are just condensing, you can say the freezing back and then converting back into the ice. So that means here the melting is in equilibrium with the freezing. Similarly, we have few more examples, like liquid is in equilibrium with the gas state. So vaporization, we can say vaporization is in equilibrium with the condensation. I'll just write the processes or underline them so that you can see them separately, what the process is actually. So that means conversion of ice into the liquid and liquid back into the ice is a phenomena in which is in equilibrium, that is melting and freezing. And the phenomena in which the liquid is getting converted into the gas and the gas is getting converted into the liquid is the vaporization is in equilibrium with the condensation. Now how it happens? See, again we have a closed container and we have the water in it, right. So those molecules of water which has the greater energy, as we know that the molecules are not in a stationary phase, they are randomly moving, and when they are randomly moving they are colliding also. So that means the energy is getting redistributed, right. So that means there are few molecules which possess more energy and the few molecules which possess less energy, right. And the molecules which possess the more energy are that means they are capable of just overcoming their force of attraction and then just get converted into the vapors, right. So what happens? Those molecules which get more energetic are just leaving their force of attraction from the liquid state and they are just converting into the vapor state, right. But as the container is closed, so that means they cannot go back out, right, you know that. So what is going to happen? As the evaporation, you can say, the proceed, as the amount of vapor increase, so what they get to do, they tend to collide among themselves and also with the inner wall of the container. So what is going to happen? When they are going to strike the other, when one vapor is going to strike the other vapor, or any vapor is going to strike the inner glass wall, they are going to again form the water droplet which will fall again down. So that means the rate of vaporization is just in equilibrium with the condensation. So what is happening in it? As we see that at the earlier stage we had only water, right. So when the vapors start forming, that means the concentration of liquid start decreasing and the vapors start increasing, right. And when there is a stage when the vapor concentration increase up to a certain level, then what happens? They just start forming the liquid back because they are colliding among themselves and also with the inner wall of the container. So that means we can say the vaporization is in equilibrium with the condensation. Don't forget that these equilibriums can be achieved only in a closed vessel. You can see I've taken a closed system. If you will take an open system, this won't be happening, this won't happen, and you are not going to get the same concentration because some of the mass will escape into the atmosphere, right? So to have an equilibrium, to have the constant concentration, we need to have a closed container. This is the most important point to achieve an equilibrium, that there should be a closed system, right? So the other example which is coming in my mind is that we can have the equilibrium between the gas and the liquid as well. Have you ever seen the gas dissolved in the liquid? Yes. We drink the soft drinks and all. What is there? There is carbon dioxide which is dissolved in the water, right? And we get the soda water, and plus we have the flavoring agent as well, right? So in this case also the gas remain dissolved in the liquid, and you may have noticed, like, again I am repeating an example. Suppose you have a bottle of Coke, right? When you what you get to see, there is the gas which is dissolved in the water, because you get to see the bubbles in the water or in the cold drink, right? So what happens when you just remove a cork? What happens? The gas just escapes out, right? So that means there is a certain factor which makes the gas soluble in the water, and there is a certain factor which just decrease the solubility of gas in a liquid. So what is that factor? That is a pressure, right? What is that factor? That is a pressure. So if we wish to dissolve a gas in a liquid, we just have to increase the pressure, right? Because the solubility of the gas in liquid just increase with increase in pressure. That is why when the gas is dissolved in the water, it is just corked from up, and whenever you just remove the cork, what happens? You just lower the pressure, and thus lowering the solubility of the gas in liquid. That is why the gas just escape and you get the sound of hiss, right? Like that. So there is a law which states the solubility of gas in liquid, that is the Henry's law. So what does this law states? This states that the gas or you can say the solubility of gas in a given solvent is directly proportional to the pressure of the gas. As I stated you in an example, that when the pressure is more, the gas remains soluble, and when just you remove the cork, the pressure gets lowered, and similarly simultaneously the solubility of the gas in the liquid gets lowered, right? So there is a physical equilibrium in this case as well, right? One more example which is coming in my mind: when we are dissolving any solid in solution. So what do you have in it? Suppose I take an example. I'm just taking a, you can say, a container and which contains the water, right? I'm adding salt to it, or you can say a sugar to it. I'm adding sugar, I'm stirring it, and I'm just getting the salt solution, right? Now what happens? I'm adding more salt to it. Suppose to this much water I add a packet of salt, right? So what you're going to see, the more you'll stir, you'll just see that it is dissolving, but after a few minutes what you'll get to see, you'll get that the many salt molecules are just lying at the bottom. So this means that these, what do you conclude from it? Do you conclude this, that this salt which I added afterwards is not being dissolved, and the salt which I added earlier got dissolved? No, it's not like that, right? The salt which we are adding is just getting dissolved in the solvent, right? But at the same time, the molecules which are dissolved in water, they are just uniting back, and then they are just crystallizing back. That means the rate of the dissolution in this case, that the amount of salt which gets dissolved, that is the rate of the dissolution, is in equilibrium with the rate of the precipitation or crystallization, whatever we can say, because when we are dissolving salt, it is getting dissolved. As more and more salt I am just adding to it, it is dissolving that, but at the same time the salt molecules which are already dissolved, they are just uniting among themselves and just precipitating out. So that means this salt which lies at the bottom is not that salt which we added afterwards, it is that salt which is initially dissolved, but when they just unite together and just form the crystals, and it is just separating out. So that means again the equilibrium is that in which the dissolution becomes, dissolution is in equilibrium with the precipitation or crystallization. So this is whole we conclude that what the physical equilibrium is, right? Again I am repeating it. Physical equilibrium is that process which involves the, or you can say the equilibrium which is achieved in the physical process, like the state conversions I told you, melting to freezing, vaporization to condensation, the solubility of gas in liquid, solubility of solid in solution, and one more sublimation also we can take, that this thing, conversion of solid ammonium chloride into the gaseous ammonium chloride, and then on cooling the gaseous ammonium chloride back into the solid ammonium chloride. So that means all these state conversions which involve the physical process are regarded, or you can say categorized in a category of physical equilibrium, right? So what important things do you get to see in the state of physical equilibrium? What do you conclude about the physical equilibrium, or you can say what are the characteristics that formulate the physical equilibrium? So we saw that there should be a closed system. I told you that if you want to achieve an equilibrium, we need to have the closed system. So that is the important criteria or the important characteristic of the physical equilibrium, right? The second, what you get to see in it, we get to see that the equilibrium can be achieved from either direction. Like if I start with the gas, I can have the equilibrium, that is I can have the liquid, right? If I start from the liquid, then also the equilibrium can be achieved that I can have the gas as well. So we can start with the either way. Like in this case, I started with ice, then I told that it melt to form liquid, and then the liquid just came on the surface of ice and got freezed back into the ice. So whether I start with the liquid, then also I can have the equilibrium, and if I start with the ice, then also I can have the equilibrium. That means in a reversible reaction, we can start from the either way. Either we start from the product or we start from the reactant. The equilibrium can be achieved from the either direction. And the third, what we get to see is that constancy in properties. That means the concentration and many other properties just become constant when the equilibrium is achieved. So this is what we make out from the physical equilibrium, that what actually is the physical equilibrium, right? I think it's clear to you. Now we are starting with the another kind of equilibrium, that is the chemical equilibrium, which will involve the chemical processes now, right? For before we start, I'm just stating an example for you. Suppose I have a reaction chamber in which I have a manometer attached, which is closed, right? And we have a mercury in it. The level of mercury in both the arms is same, right? And this is a reaction chamber in which I am going to achieve the equilibrium state. I am going to show you that how the equilibrium is achieved. I have this, I'll make with different colors so that, so this all blue one, the dots which I represented represents the calcium carbonate, right? So what is, and this is the mercury, and the level of mercury in both the arm is same. As we can see, the level is same, right? And what is this? This is vacuum. Nothing is present here. Now, what is going to happen? We'll get to see that this CaCO3 has tendency to get decomposed, right? So at certain temperature, it just decomposes to form calcium oxide and carbon dioxide, right? And as we know, the gases exert pressure. So in this case, we have, this is solid, this is again solid, and this is gas. So that means in this case the pressure will only be due to this carbon dioxide, right? So what will happen when this CaCO3 will get decomposed, that means it is converted into the CaO and CO2, right? This CO2 being gas, it will exert certain kind of pressure. So what we'll get to see, I'm making another apparatus showing the pressure which is exerted by it. Just you can see that in the previous one the level of the mercury was same, but in this case the level has just changed, and again this is CaCO3 which is just decomposed to form CaO and CO2. Again it is a reaction chamber in which the reaction is taking place, right? So what do you get to see? See here the level of the mercury in both the arms was same, because initially it was only CaCO3, nothing was there, right? But as we know that when we heat it, the CaCO3, that is the calcium carbonate, or we commonly called as limestone, marble also, it has a tendency to get decomposed. So when it is decomposing, it is forming CaO and it is forming CO2, right? So what is happening to the CO2? CO2 is gas, and you know that the gases always exert pressure. So this is what the CO2 is exerting the pressure, and what it is doing, the CO2 is exerting the pressure and just forcing the mercury level in the one arm to go down and the other arm to rise, right? This you get to see. See, the level in the mercury earlier was here, right? And now it is here because it has just forced this gas. I'm just making the, you can say, indicating the gas molecules with the help of this red circles, right? So what these gas is doing, the CO2 is exerting in pressure, which is forcing mercury level to go down in one limb and to increase in the other limb. As we can see this is mercury, this hole is mercury. So that means there is a pressure, and this pressure is obviously due to the gas. Again, just look at the board. So I just want you to tell you that earlier there was no pressure, such kind of pressure, and the level of the mercury was same, right? And what happens when it decomposed, the CO2 was liberated, the pressure goes on increasing. That means CaCO3 concentration decrease, and these products go on increasing, and this is indicated as the level of the mercury started going down, right? But with the passage of time, what we get to see, there was no further change in the level of the mercury, right? So do we think that there was no CO2 or the reaction has stopped taking place? No, it was not like that. It is actually the amount of you can say the CaCO3 which is getting decomposed into the CaCO and the CO2. These are reacting back to form the CaCO3, right? I think you got it now, that with the passage of time what happens, this concentration of CaCO3 was started decreasing, right? And with the same time they start increasing, right? And when the concentration of CaO and CO2 is achieved to a certain level, then what happens, this reaction actually they start again combining, and just the reaction occur in a backward direction, that is they are again forming the CaCO3, and the stage comes when we don't get to see any change in the level of the mercury. That means, that doesn't mean that the reaction is not taking place, that means only that the reaction is taking place, but the rate of reaction in the forward reaction is just equal to the rate of the backward reaction, or you can say the rate or the speed at which the CaCO3, that is the limestone, is getting converted into the CaO and CO2 is same as the rate at which the CaO and CO2 is just combining back to give the CaCO3. So that indicates the equilibrium, because here we are involving a chemical reaction, so that is why it comes under an example of chemical equilibrium, right? So I think you are clear with the chemical equilibrium, right? So just we'll look for the characteristics of the chemical equilibrium as well. So what do you conclude? Again, it was achieved in a closed system. Similarly, this equilibrium is also achieved in a closed system, right? Here you get to see that the equilibrium can be achieved from the either direction, and what you get to see in this case, the same, that the equilibrium, if we start with, here we took CaCO3 as a reactant, and if we would have taken the CaO and CO2 as a reactant, we are going to get the same result. That means equilibrium can be achieved from either direction, right? And what do you observe in this or in this case? Has the reaction stopped taking place? No, it was still taking place. At equilibrium also the reactions were going on, but only the rate became constant. So this is a very important property, that the equilibrium is dynamic in nature. Whether it is the chemical equilibrium or whether it is the physical equilibrium, equilibrium is always a state of dynamic, that is the reactions are taking place. See, the closed system and the dynamic nature is very important, do not forget it to write, right? Because if you consider that the reaction stops, so you are not going to, you cannot explain the equilibrium in a proper manner, right? And you need to take the closed system. I am repeating again, the closed system and the dynamic nature are the two important aspects of the equilibrium, right? So the other factor is that if we have a catalyst, so does it affect the equilibrium? No, it is not going to affect the equilibrium, as I think you are familiar with the catalyst. Catalyst is that substance which just increase the rate of reaction. That means it just increase the speed of the reaction, or I can say it just increase the, you can say the reaction to occur faster. It just help the reaction to occur in a faster manner. That means the time taken by CaCO3 to get converted into the CaCO2, it just increase that time, or I can say just increase the time in which the CaO and CO2 will take to convert into the CaCO3. So the catalyst is not going to you can say affect the equilibrium, or only what it can help in is that it will help us to achieve the equilibrium faster. That means if we are going to achieve the equilibrium after 2 minutes, it will help in achieving the equilibrium in 1 minute, right? It is just it will not have any effect on the equilibrium, direct effect. It will just help to increase to achieve that state more fast, right? Only this is the criteria, otherwise it does not affect, has no effect on the equilibrium. Right. So these are the characteristics which we have summed up for the physical equilibrium and for the chemical equilibrium. I think it's clear now. Now we are going to study about that. As I told you, it is an important aspect that dynamic in nature, that you need to have a closed system. You know that what is the reason behind. We need a closed system because there should no exchange of matter with the surroundings, because if the matter will exchange with the surrounding, we will not have the constant concentration, right? And similarly, I told you that equilibrium is dynamic in nature. That means the reaction is still taking place. So if you get a question related to that how can you show that the equilibrium is dynamic in nature? So how you're going to explain that, I'm explaining, you just look at the board. This is one of the important aspects of the equilibrium, what I told you. So I'm taking the explanation on the basis of Haber's process. You know that Haber's process is actually a formation, it is a process of formation of ammonia in which N2 combines with H2, right? And it is a reversible reaction, leads to the formation of ammonia. A catalyst is iron, and the catalytic promoter is molybdenum oxide, and we have condition of high temperature and high pressure. You know that this is the ammonia. Like, now how you are going to explain the dynamic nature of ammonia? See, what I did, I took a container, right, in which I just used N2 and H2. Like, I'll draw a balloon, a closed system indicating for you. Suppose I have this kind of balloon, right? It is just closed, it is a closed system. I have N2, I have H2, and I do have NH3. I'm just indicating with different pens, right? Right. So I have here, there are so many N2 molecules, right? This is indicated by this, so many N2 molecules, and likewise I have so many H2 molecules, and we do have many ammonia molecules. I'm writing it with the red pen just to avoid the confusion, right? I'm indicating ammonia with the red pen. Right. Suppose a stage comes when there is a constant concentration, which we get to see that the amount of N2, H2 that combines to form NH3, that is the concentration of the NH3, and the concentration of the unreacted N2 and H2 becomes constant with time. That means we have achieved an equilibrium, right? So we have a system in which we have already achieved an equilibrium. I'm just separating this, you can say the system, and I'm just performing in another experiment. So now what we are doing in this balloon, or you can say in this closed system, what we are doing, again we have N2 molecules, many N2 molecules, right? And in place of H2, I have used the, you can say, the isotope of hydrogen, that is the deuterium. So we know that hydrogen protium is this, deuterium is with 2 atomic mass. So in this case, instead of H11, I am using the deuterium, that is the hydrogen with atomic mass 2. So I am writing the deuterium with D2. And what we get to see the ammonia formation. What is the difference between this ammonia and that ammonia? That ammonia contains the protium hydrogen, and this contains the deuterium hydrogen. right? Suppose a stage comes, in this balloon also a stage comes when the, you can say the concentration of ND3 is in just equilibrium with the N2 and D2. So that means I have achieved an equilibrium. So I have this balloon in which I have achieved an equilibrium. I am writing an equation for you, N2 plus H2 NH3. It is in equilibrium, right? Again, for this balloon, I have N2 plus D2 in equilibrium, right? So that means if I want to show that the reaction is still taking place, because what do you mean by the dynamic nature? It means the reaction still taking place, reaction hasn't stopped, or the reaction do not stop at equilibrium, it still take place, right? So how, what I am going to prove by these balloons, just look at it, because this is very important aspect of equilibrium, as I told you, right? So how we are going to indicate that the reaction is still taking place? What I am going to take now, I am taking another closed system, one more balloon,